Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Hosting with me tonight is Cory Hughes. What's up, Cory? How you doing?
I'm good.
That is excellent. Tonight, our guests are Joe, Jen, and Ben Hodgden from Legit Bat Podcast. Before we bring them on, a couple of announcements. Coming March 11th, 12th, and 13th, we've got Forbidden Knowledge News Con. We're going to feature 8 badass presenters. It's going to be online with a Rokfin premium membership, and that means you get the entire conference for only $10 motherfucking dollars. All you have to do is sign up through the link in the description. You're going to get access to not only the conference, you get all our premium content and all the content from all the creators on Rokfin. New episodes always available free on Rokfin, as well as Odysee and all podcast platforms. Our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, is also the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. That's where we feature podcasts from our wonderful community. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All those links are in the description. And guys, if you want to get through your day without having to wear a face diaper to go to the store, airport, or even work, check out Fake Mask. Fake Mask has the most breathable and authentic looking masks on the market, sure to get you into stores, on airplanes, and into work. So when there's no other way to get your late night fix of salty nuts from your corner store without a compliance muzzle, break out that fake mask. Click the link in the description. You're going to get 10% off your order. Tonight we want to welcome Joe, Jen, and Ben Hodgden. They're the great and powerful hosts of the prestigious Legit Bat Podcast, where they blend conspiracy and comedy together in a delicious, hearty podcast smoothie of truth. Welcome, lady and gentlemen. How are you tonight?
Good, man. Thanks for having us. That's quite the intro. I don't think our show has ever been described more accurately.
I legit sat up a little straighter there for a minute. I was like, I am indeed, yes.
Yes.
Oh, we're professional, right?
Fucking prestigious, yes. And today is going to be the 5th ever Conspiracy Buffet episode, where we're going to get your thoughts and insights not only into our classic conspiracies that we all know and love, but maybe some we haven't explored yet. And since 2020, many of those classics have become really endangered species. So join us tonight in saving the conspiracies. I really want to start with each of your favorite conspiracy theories, Legit Bat Crew. Let's start with lady and gentleman there, Joe and Jen.
Well, when you talked about that earlier, it's hard to choose because, like you said, they're kind of an endangered species at this point, and most of the well-loved conspiracy theories are just true. So it's kind of hard to it's not really a conspiracy, so I don't know. But I think one of the one I was thinking about, we've been talking a lot about like nutrition and food and all that, and I think that's one of the people can see through that now too, but there's still people that think the food pyramid was a good idea, you know what I mean? And every time I look at it, I'm like, it's just such obvious horse shit that you shouldn't be eating that way. So the fact that that was a recommended thing by our, leaders, always blows my mind that people still follow that kind of eating. And even my parents do, like the canned food, all the processed bread and all the shit that kind of started up, I guess, in the 50s or somewhere around there, where that was the way to go because it was convenient, and you ate out of cans because we had to work and come home. I think it's not really a conspiracy theory as much as just kind of fucked up that's how everybody's taught to eat. And I don't know, that's just what was going through my head earlier.
It was still like propaganda though. Because go ahead.
I don't think we need food. I think we can just walk out in the sunlight and be like, oh,
spread your butt cheeks.
Right? Don't we get vitamin D from that and stuff?
Yeah. Yep.
Breatharian,
yeah, just be breatharian.
Didn't the food pyramid come from like the era where the doctors were telling us it's healthy to smoke cigarettes and shit, and they had commercials about it?
Like do cocaine. That's fine.
Well, it had like bread at the bottom, right? And you need to have like all these servings of bread every fucking day. Yeah. So it was probably the bread companies came up with that shit.
I think sugar is at the top though. Like sugar is part of it. It's like it's in there. It shouldn't even be in there at all.
Gluten was the number one at the top of the pyramid. Just eat some gluten.
Just a little though. Don't overdo it. Just need a little bit.
Or like the way that our food system in this country, which I'm assuming it's around the world, but was probably worse here, That is a conspiracy above all else, really, because that's what created all the fucking fat people and all the diabetes and all the shit that people never seen before, all these cancers. The vast majority of it comes from our goddamn food, and I think of that every time I eat my McDonald's and shit.
Well, yeah, and there's so many facets to it too, because the whole milk thing in itself is a side trail on nobody was drinking milk, so they had to come up with this way to get people to buy up the surplus milk, and that was where the got milk came from, and so it goes. No,
you absolutely fucking need milk because of cookies. That's all there is to it. Right. No other fucking reason.
Because you need cookies too.
Yeah, we live in an era where your 500-pound doctor will walk in munching on some cookies. He'll, prescribe you a bunch of medications, but you ask him about, nutrition, maybe preventative care, a little exercise. His eyes will just glaze over, and he'll take a big bite of that cookie and be like, "Nope, here you go. We're going to prescribe you with this here, this, and that." And no. There's no word of nutrition or preventative care or anything coming from our medical industry, which is like really the cornerstone to health,
Yeah.
It should be, but it kind of isn't. It's really the cornerstone to the most unhealthy shit ever. They just want to keep you sick. They don't really want to make you healthy because there's no money in that.
Well, and that's the other part of the whole food-based conspiracies, ties directly into the medical and pharma industries, and that's another glaringly obvious one that, conspiracy theorists have talked about that for decades, but just in the last 2 years, I think a lot more people have been like, oh, yeah, they are just kind of there to make money and keep you sick, so you keep buying their shit, and it's kind of the way the whole economy works, really. They get people addicted to these different things, and it keeps return customers. It's a great business model, but...
Chris, can you open up screen share?
Yeah. If more people keep bringing it up, though, I'm afraid that vitamins and foods are definitely going to be compromised, because if people go away from the pharmaceuticals, they're going to find a way to corrupt that somehow.
Yeah, I want to show you guys this. It's pretty funny. This is like an ad for cigarettes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Smoke a fresh cigarette. It's
I tell all my patients to smoke Camels.
Give your throat a vacation.
9 out of 10 doctors agree Camels are the smoothest.
Dude, I've made a whole compilation memes of all the old ads of do some heroin for this. You got ghost in your blood, do cocaine. You got this. There's one medication that had cocaine, morphine. It was like a speedball in this Grandpa John's tonic or something, and they sold it over the counter. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's why whenever you see those fairs with the peddler that's like, come get your miracle potion, this, that, and the other, and then you look at the ingredients and it's all the stuff that's just gonna numb you and send you on a nice vacation while you're sitting down.
Right, and I'm all for that. More power to you. Go do all of them. That's fine.
Well, that stuff all became illegal here, in the 20s. When the government realized that the black marketeers were making all this money off of cocaine and heroin in other parts of the world. And so then, of course, they made it illegal so that they could then exploit the already existing trafficking routes. It was a big fix, really. Involved Arnold Rothstein, it was really one of the first times that the mob and the government worked together to set up large scale operations.
Well, and the FDA's been doing it ever since. Every time that a new thing is created that's it's supposed to be ingested, the FDA's like, oh nope, that's bad. It's bad. We have to test it, and then they get it off the market. They test it, and then they re-release it. Okay, it's safe now. We ran it,
patent,
and now we can garner all of those nice little dividends off of it.
Well, and then when the patent expires, they just change a little molecule or two.
Right.
And it's basically the same drug, but then they can repatent it and keep it for another however many years. But that was another conspiracy, is the CIA smuggling crack cocaine into the inner cities. And that's pretty much come out as, yeah, that's what the fuck happened. And nobody does anything about it. Nothing came from it. And it's kind of common knowledge now. Well, in our circles, I guess.
They must have a plan, though. They know. They're like, okay, there's a certain number of years that, nobody's going to give a shit. So it's 70 or whatever. We'll release this. Everyone who cared will be dead. And then no one's going to be talking about it because there'll be some other crazy thing that we will have constructed that they'll be focused on. And this will be just old news. No big deal.
But the thing is, the government still to this day controls the global drug trafficking, operation. Like they are the top of the pyramid when it comes to the growing of the heroin, the cocaine, all that. All of these cartels that we've had were like middlemen for the goddamn CIA and their partners around the world. I mean, and there's pretty, there's decent evidence out supporting that. There's definitely evidence that shows the drug trafficking was managed by the CIA out of Saigon from 66 to 68, an Air America scandal where they were stuffing bodies full of heroin. Like, we know about all that, right? Yeah, it's so fucking out in the open, but nothing ever happens.
I'd like to officially thank the CIA for the great times I had in high school and beyond. The drugs were amazing. Thank you, guys.
No, I was thinking about it the other day, and really, I'm now under the belief that the vast majority of the LSD that came out in the 60s was all supplied by the CIA. I know that they had supplied some of the early Grateful Dead concerts that happened in upstate New York. They were involved with, I don't know about Woodstock, but a lot of the other festivals that were put on. And then you have like Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters and all those guys who were involved with the LSD movement, who all ended up being CIA agents. So yeah, I think like the CIA has played a major role in our drug culture.
Well, and then there's the guarding the poppy fields in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole other story over there too, and that's the heroin, and that probably ties into the fentanyl that's now in the cocaine, which is why I'm so glad I don't do those kinds of drugs anymore, because I would be very scared of dying of fentanyl now. I'm not ever scared of dying of pure cocaine. You have to do a fucking shitload. But
I heard
with
back
fentanyl, you
home
can die.
in Louisiana, they're even lacing like the weed and shit with fentanyl. It's gotten fucking crazy with their shit.
Like, I've known some fucking drug dealers in my day, and not a fucking one of them wanted to kill their clientele. So that tells me there's something else going on here with the lacing of the drugs, because the lacing of the drugs is 100% happening. Kate Quigley, a comedian out in California, who I had worked with for a couple months, she actually went out with a couple people and all did coke, and 3 of them died. She ended up in the fucking hospital because it was laced with fentanyl. It's just insane, so I don't understand who's like, if you're and I have to assume fentanyl's pretty goddamn expensive, right? So why would you cut a drug with an even more expensive drug? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I don't think it's actually that expensive. I think that's the problem with that is that it's so fucking potent for how little you have to have to die from it.
You only need a tiny
they could
bit.
just put a dusting of it in, a pile of cocaine and probably be lethal. So, and it's all coming from China too. Like, I don't even know the percentage. I'm not going to talk out my ass on that, but most of it is manufactured in China and then brought over here. So there's another rabbit trail.
Yeah, I mean, what that means is you just got to cook all your coke into crack before you do it.
Burn all that fentanyl out. Get pure crack.
Wonder if that works.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh yeah, that baking soda will get out all them impurities and the fentanyl and everything. So you heard it here, people. Smoke crack, don't do coke.
Yes, no, okay. While we're on the line of intelligence kind of having their hands in everything from drugs to our culture creation, what about the conspiracy of that they had a lot of involvement in maybe shaping a lot of our famous serial killers along the way? A lot of them have been intelligence background, military background. There's a lot of strange ties with that. I know Cory's looked into that a little bit. What do you think?
Go ahead.
Oh, go for it. No, you go for it. You sound like you've done more research.
I've only looked at this very briefly, but there does seem to be some kind of connection between these guys all having been in the army, however, or some sort of military. But then again, when you look at the era, it was not uncommon for people to want to join the military, right? So that can't always really be a basis for the connection alone. Now, I don't know if people like Dahmer, who was in the military, if he was connected to any kind of intelligence, but it seems like perhaps, and this is just a far-fetched theory, they do try to recruit a certain level of psychopath, but I'm sure that there are some people who are just too much for what they're looking for, right? And maybe people like Dahmer are like the spillover leftovers who they really don't want to be associated with. For
Too
some
much
reason.
by like wearing their victims' buttholes as necklaces, you mean? You know, something along those lines.
Yeah, a little. Yeah. I mean, they probably just don't. They're too extreme on a psychological profile.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes me think.
Butthole
Butthole necklace. That should have been the title of this episode. It's all like everything else. I think about the serial killer thing could be manufactured, but at what level? You know, is it just somebody playing the part? Is it a complete fabrication? I mean, obviously people do die, as far as we know, or is it some more like MK Ultra testing, like they're under the influence of some kind of mind control? Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't think it's organic.
That's a good question. You know, the mind control stuff is very real, but the more I dug into the mind control, the more I started to get the feeling that a lot of the MK Ultra programs were actually covers for biological weapons, right? Like, so all the LSD experimentation they did starting in the 50s fell under MK Ultra ultimately. But they were looking for biological weapons, not necessarily mind control, right? They wanted to see what would happen with LSD if they dosed the whole population, right? Would they become docile and then they could just walk in and scoop them all up? You know, they wanted to see things like that. So I have a very strong feeling that a lot of the MK Ultra and mind control stuff is really a cover for some heavy duty biological weapons shit that the world's probably never heard of. The files have probably never existed, you know?
Yeah. On freedom of request or freedom of information request, obtainable. That's another one that fucking pisses me off, is every time somebody actually does get a document from FOIA, it's so redacted, it's not even fucking worth looking at. So and it came out recently that Peter Daszak of the EcoHealth Alliance, who was connected to Wuhan and Anthony Fauci and all that stuff with the grant money, he bragged to a bunch of people that EcoHealth was a CIA front and he was working for the CIA. And I think that was even reported in some of the mainstream outlets. So yeah, that's right up their fucking alley. It would make perfect sense. And that would be the missing link in the COVID story. Yeah. Is this going on YouTube, or can we talk about vaccines and COVID?
Well, you talk about whatever the fuck you want. Fuck YouTube.
Oh, cool.
yeah, fuck YouTube.
I was just wondering if I should say stabby or whatever.
Say whatever you want. We didn't get to Ben for some of your favorite conspiracies.
He's the skeptic of the crew.
Yeah, it's what always drew me to Cory's work was the fact that I'm always more of that skeptical kind of like, not sure that I buy into the conspiracy. But I mean, that being said, we're 18 months into this fucking roller coaster of a group of people that we have met. So I would definitely say that my mind has changed a lot on that. I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head that I don't know. Yeah.
Well, just wait till you get that alien Dr. Jellyfinger up in there. You might be a believer then. I know some people that can help you out with that too. So we'll talk. We'll talk.
Send
later.
them my way.
Yeah. Get that alien Jellyfinger.
I think in general, Ben's Jellyfinger. I think Ben's just come to the realization that not everything is as it appears, and that's good enough. I mean, well, consider that a W.
That's my biggest thing, is that I am perpetually stuck in the middle now, which is a huge step for me as it was. I was very much in my line of thinking. And because of the podcast and everybody that we've met and everything that we've been able to talk about, it's been a giant step into legitimately thinking about these things being real. And that alone, and not even necessarily buying into it or saying, you know what, I actually think that that's right. It's the idea that instead of immediately shutting it down and saying, it's fucking retarded, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting story. I could see that actually being true. That for me is huge. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I have any that I'm like, I think this is real, but I'm open to all of it. And that's huge.
I think you've changed your mind not changed your mind, but looked at it differently, at least with like the moon landing and some of the other stuff we covered kind of early on that you were like, what? I had no idea that was there. Well, so it's been a slow process.
Actually, Joe, I think that's actually a great one to bring up that I've kind of always thought when it comes to conspiracy. So thanks actually for mentioning that, because the moon landing was one that I've actually kind of been on board with since about 2000. When I was a kid. It was always one that after I watched that documentary where they first brought it out on the mainstream media, which now you look back and you're like, it could be controlled opposition.
See, that's a conspiracy theorist term in itself. Good on you.
Exactly. No, good on you, mate.
I'm so far.
But that's actually one that I would honestly say I'm way more invested in, where I think that it's much more likely that we did not go, for all of just the face value ramifications of if we're capable of doing that in 1969, right? Was when we did it.
Something like that.
Why haven't we gone back now with all this technology? I mean, we've gone leaps and bounds.
Well, and the plot thickens on that because they say that they don't have the technology to do it anymore, and all the original videos. And all the original videos were destroyed. They recorded over them on accident. So that's where...
Or they found aliens on the dark side of the moon and something told them to go back or whatever. Or they never went in the first place. They just didn't go.
My general idea on that, though, is that it's, at the very least, it was misrepresented. At the worst, we never fucking went there. And that makes more sense to me based on everything else we've seen.
Go ahead, Cory.
The bigger conflict that I have is that, like... Now, I agree. 100% of that footage of the moon shit is fake. It just is fake.
Oh, yeah.
Of all fake.
Oh, yeah.
But could we actually have gone there? I still don't know. And here's where I'm trapped. I'm trapped between we're too fucking stupid to get to the moon, yet we have a secret space program that's been to Mars. Because I'm a believer in the TR-3B. And I don't see why the fuck that TR-3B can't go everywhere. So, of course, they can go to the moon and to Mars if they got the TR-3B, if I understand it the way it is.
Well, apparently helicopters can fly on Mars too. That's a new one on me. I thought it didn't have an atmosphere.
Well, okay, Joe, I just thought of this. When they said they don't have the technology anymore, the only thing that supports that evidence is the idea of after Roswell and everything else that happened in the late 40s, early 50s, including a lot of what Cory's research has brought up within that time frame, and the establishment of all of these groups. I just watched a video recently of all of the insane leaps and bounds that have been well documented. Things like the A-12 Avenger airplane, SR-71 Blackbird, the Nighthawk, all of these planes that were legit planes that suddenly came out of nowhere with the kind of technology that went into them. The idea of aliens and us, what do they call it? Reverse engineering that kind of craft in order to make our own shit out of it after being capable of doing it. If we lost, much like Tesla's work, if we lost some of that without it being recorded and we had one shot and it worked, okay, great. Now that might make sense in that idea.
It would make sense to me just because they are incompetent as fuck. So I verge on that too, where I'm like, well, they are fucking stupid sometimes, so maybe they did lose it, or maybe.
Well, there are layers of incompetence in government. Sure. I mean, it has to be like incompetent, competent, controlled. Incompetent, competent, controlled. Right. So that's the best guess that I have. I want to let me play. I don't know if I didn't play this on this show before. I'm going to play this one more time. This is the. This is the launch from the moon, and tell me what you guys think.
I like the foil.
Yeah.
What? Jesus.
And it made it all the way back to Earth like that.
Yeah, and who stayed back behind to record that amazing video?
Yeah, because it pans. It's not a tripod. The camera fucking pans up.
That's the moon Nazis that were already there.
I don't understand all the disco blasts. Yeah,
it looks like confetti and a small saucer being pulled up by a string.
People were so gullible. There's no way that we went to the moon because we would have gone back and tried to colonize it and take a piece of it for ourselves.
This is when
countries are doing with Antarctica.
That's when
where's the flame? Shouldn't there be a big flame coming out the bottom?
I think that the Kubrick's budget started to run out at this point.
They're like, wait, what are we gonna do about the blast off? Oh shit, we didn't budget for that. Fuck, what are we gonna do? Confetti.
Confetti.
Just fucking confetti and shitty cameras.
Yeah, make sure it's super blurry and out of focus, and bring back these rocks that we found in New Mexico, and just say they were from the moon.
Yeah,
and different from the Earth.
get the thinnest fishing line that you can possibly get, and just fucking do it in your kitchen, man.
Man,
That little
sandbox.
module was probably like 3 inches wide. That's how big it was, and
Yeah,
the camera was just sitting
pretty
on a
much.
table.
Speaking of fake footage, have you guys seen the comparisons of the Mars footage to the footage of Devon Island, Canada? I mean, you just literally you change the tone and color of the landscape there. You're on fucking Mars. And they've showed side-by-side pictures of exactly the same types of landscapes on
did
Devon
the
Island.
same thing
and on
about the
Mars.
moon.
It's pretty funny.
Here, I want to play this other video. This is the docking of the fucking thing after it takes off from the moon. How it docks with the ship that went back to Earth.
Side note: docking is super gay.
We're inclusive here.
I didn't say it was wrong. I just said it was super gay. So what is this? What year is this from? Or
Like
supposedly?
72 or something like that. Like, does any of this look legit?
I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking at. It looks like an underwater craft.
It
first
looks
of
like
all.
the same quality footage that we're still putting out of fucking space, you know? It's,
Look at this movement. What's up with this movement?
I don't know. The thrusters would not be doing that.
Are they recording it with a telescope? Like, what is recording currently? What's recording this?
Something from that's attached to the ship that it's going to dock with.
Gotcha. Okay. I just wanted to. All right. So it's going to dock with the ship.
Right. So it took off from the moon super slow, like we just saw,
Yeah.
and then got into something. They're allegedly in a 4,000 mile per hour orbit around the moon right now.
whoa.
And then they just happened to be able to meet up without ever having practiced this. And they got cameras everywhere.
Very steady. They're very steady camera for 4,000 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, they
steady.
didn't have no gyroscopes, no auto stabilizers, none of that garbage.
No computer control.
Here comes the penis.
Oh man, ultra
And how the
close
fuck-
up too.
And so how the fuck did they get back to Earth?
Well,
Dude, and when those numbers are thrown around so willy-nilly, like, oh yes, this is going at 4,000 miles an hour, and the Earth's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and we're going through space at this many miles an hour. Nobody can wrap their head around how fast 4,000 miles an hour is, and how ridiculously hard it would be to get two things to match up and meet together to dock at that speed. It's ridiculous. Can you imagine doing it at 80 miles an hour? Like, that would be hard enough.
Here's my question. So if it's gonna sound like a fucking math problem, if the train is going 34 miles, so if we're rotating at supposedly 4,000 miles around, right? So it's like centrifugal force within centrifugal force, and then a plane takes off going that same direction. Wouldn't that technically be 4,400 miles an hour?
Well, this is where Einstein's relativity comes into play.
Ah, fuck.
Yeah. And
theory-
relativity
theory of
explains all the how, like, relativity explains a lot of shit.
Okay, well, Mr. Corey, do you have any fucking relativity on the moon landing?
No, I sure
it's
as fuck
relatively
don't.
retarded
All right.
looking, and yeah, we can pretty much say
Your
that
shit's
that
all
footage
retarded.
is fake. For
Isn't
sure.
relativity a theory too? So they're just as much of a theorist as we are.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Like when you read it, I don't understand the calculus, but like the idea of what relativity is seems pretty solid, and I think it's held up fairly well.
Well, and you know what's funny about that is you get into really, really crazy, like, theoretical quantum physics, and it gets all the way down to how nothing is actually solid. It's all, if you look at anything under a microscope, it's all vibrating particulates and ions
Space.
just going. It's like magnetism that you don't actually see. So if that's the case, this chair isn't actually real. It's just made up of molecules that are resistant and attractive, and your butt is somehow on that in a resistant level, right? So it's like, okay, we know that shit now, but we supposedly landed on the moon with that shitty camera and quality. Weren't these people figuring this shit out way before then? So if we know all that, but they can't even get a solid fucking picture of us supposedly going to the moon, doesn't that kind of contradict everything that supposedly we've made leaps and bounds on?
You would think.
You would think. Here, I have one more video I want to play. This one is fascinating. I'll share sound.
Fascinating.
So this is some dude. He's a doctor. 1965 scientist claims the moon is plasma, and you won't be able to land on it.
Well, now, one thing, you have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, a cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail. That means that the mass of the moon is far less than is currently assumed. It's in a different state of energy, and it has far less mass. That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high under conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and a new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.
Aren't you being a bit adventurous, though, because you know we're going to be able to test out your theories on the moon fairly soon?
Well, not anymore. 11 years ago, of course, it was rather taking a risk. I was considered a lunatic, of course. But by now, the evidence, accumulated evidence, is already so much in my favor that I'm not taking any risks anymore. On the contrary, there is scientific views expressed all over the world now that the moon seems to be of a quite different nature of what was assumed.
But the Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Well, that will never happen. Not on the moon. On Mars, on Venus, on other planets, yes. But the moon is definitely, as I assert, a plasma.
Dude, that 100% supports exactly what you were talking about. Kind of being on board with the fact that we've gone to Mars, but not have gone to the moon. Because, I mean, he just fucking said it. Mars, Venus, this, that, and the other. Like, that's possible. That's an actual hard surface. But if the molecular
Venus was a gas, actually. I thought Venus was a gaseous planet.
Don't they call Jupiter that too? A gas?
Yeah, Jupiter. Mm-hmm.
You guys
We have a fucking clue. I don't think they know.
You guys familiar with the work of Crow 777? And his documentary Shoot the Moon? I mean, that would kind of support the theories that he's put forth, that the moon isn't a physical object. He's shot footage of what he calls the lunar wave, where he can kind of put his telescope out in a certain portion of the moon, and it looks like it's kind of like it's got this shimmery wave over it every once in a while, like it's not physical.
Rendering.
So it's very interesting. That's a very interesting theory. I'm gonna have to.
Maybe the moon is the holographic projector that's projecting our environment.
So there's actually a whole theory about that, and that goes into that documentary that I had to pick my soul up off the ground after it shot out of my ass. Was the idea that none of that is it's so hard to wrap your mind around the idea that when you actually look at like a star. So Joe just did this the other day with his telescope, and he was saying he was able to zoom in on a star, and it's exactly what they showed in this documentary. It's not a ball. It's this crazy kind of thing of energy.
It's like red and blue and just like a vibrating like
yeah,
thing.
It looks like a light underwater. That's exactly what it looks like, because it looks like the water is moving and there's a pointed light, and it's a trip. You'd have to see that documentary to know what I'm talking about. But
perhaps stars are just pinholes in the curtain of night.
Yeah.
But what you were saying about
the
projection is the idea, and he goes into the idea that old school cameras, the phosphorus had light that would shoot, and basically what came back and burned onto the image was the contrast of items stacked in front of each other. So like your nose is out farther than your forehead and your mouth and all that. So as the light goes through, what comes back in light reflection, the phosphorus burns onto the canvas. And so the moon is doing the same kind of idea. It's been fucking staring at us for, you know, however many years. And the idea that it's actually just kind of emitting what is coming off of us, whether it be the shape of what you see in the pattern of continents, which now gets into the whole flat earth thing. That's a whole other discussion. But all of what you just said about it being kind of like a mirror of a projection of what it is that I 100% see that being possible.
Well, and as far as the holographic universe theory, I am more of like, I look at like particles as pixels. And so I think it's more likely that particles function as pixels to make that kind of comparison, as opposed to our micro universe, like our solar system only, or whatever the, you know, is visible to us. I would think it'd be a more underlying type thing.
It's interesting when you look at it as a whole. It would make sense why they would hide this stuff if it could contain some kind of free energy implications with, like, we're, you know, surrounded by this ether type energy that surrounds us at all times. You know, Tesla said that he could get electricity from the air. That could possibly be true, and it could possibly be part of the explanation of the nature of our reality, the solar system, what we are on this planet, and it could, you know, be hiding a huge free energy secret there, and that's probably why they don't want us to know what's really going on our planet and beyond, maybe.
Well, I think there's a connection between the free energy stuff and the anti-gravity. And if that's the case, let's say they did have this shit, and, you know, I don't know that they could actually make that public that isn't heavily regulated or licensed, because, like, everybody would be like in that movie Explorers. Everybody'd be making some anti-gravity ship and shooting themselves out into fucking space. And, like, they can't have that, you know? So that, the energy implications aside, I think that'd be some pretty dangerous stuff to have around, because also, if I'm not mistaken, that technology can also lead to, like, cataclysmic universal explosion kind of shit.
That's what we need right now, a cataclysmic universal explosion. All right, Cory, you got any conspiracies you want to share?
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about Jack the Ripper.
Oh, yes.
So, Jack the Ripper, I don't know why they still even talk about it as though it's some kind of mystery. Many years ago, I'm going to screen share this article. So many years ago, there was some DNA done on a shawl that was recovered from one of the crime scenes, the shawl of Catherine Eddowes. And basically 150 years later, DNA was run on it against a descendant, a known direct relative of Catherine Eddowes. And a stain was compared to the DNA of descendants of one of the suspects named Aaron Kosminski. And Kosminski, let me see if there's a picture of him here. He looks like he'd be the Ripper. Here he is. So that's the person, Aaron Kosminski, who was like the primary suspect. And so 150 years later, they did DNA analysis, and they found that it was the descendants of Kosminski and of Eddowes was basically a direct DNA match. They could tell that the lineages were correct. And so the secret of who was Jack the Ripper is not really a secret. The guy's name was Aaron Kosminski. Now, what caught my attention in here were the dates in particular of the murders. So the dates were kind of scattered and spread out, and the bodies were cut up and organs were removed, and things were, you know, the organs were cleaned and removed from the body. And let me see if I can find, I have a couple quotes here that I found that in regards to the treatment of animal sacrifices on the Jewish holidays of Passover and Rosh Hashanah, because I found that 2 of the dates so far that I've looked into overlapped with Jewish holidays. So I want to read this quote. This is on the description of the Passover sacrifice. The lamb was then hung upon special hooks or sticks and skinned, but if the eve of the Passover fell on the Sabbath, the skin was removed down to the breast only. The abdomen was then cut open, and the fatty portions intended for the altar were taken out, placed in a vessel, salted, and offered by the priest on the altar, while the remaining entrails likewise were taken out and cleansed. So it seems like a fairly decent assumption that Kosminski, who was a Jew, was killing these women on Jewish holidays in a way that was in accordance with traditional Jewish ritual sacrifice. One more quote that I have here that if I can find it. Let me stop the share.
That's interesting. I've heard some people theorize that this could have been some kind of ritual sacrifice type thing that was going on.
Section of Edo's bloodied apron was found at the entrance to a tenant in Golston Street, Whitechapel at 255. A chalk inscription upon the wall directly above this place of the apron read, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." This graffiti became known as the Golston Street graffiti, and the police, fearing that anti-Semitic attacks would occur afterwards, they washed it away from the wall before anyone else could see. So would love one day to do a little bit further deep dive into Jack the Ripper. But it seems as though it is exactly what I just laid out, a series of Jewish ritual sacrifices.
Man,
Wow.
That's crazy.
that is super interesting.
Leave it to Cory to find those connections.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right, I got a list of some fucking conspiracies that we're just gonna ram through here. You guys already brought up moon landing. Congratulations. We already kind of talked about holographic Earth, simulation. It's all around the same thing. What about the conspiracy that the royal family are a multi-generational race of reptilian alien beings?
I think they're definitely part of something. I don't know if they're actually lizards or not, but there's no fucking reason that Queen is still alive. Have you seen her?
She hasn't changed her look in like 40 years. She looks like a wax figure.
There's all kinds of theories on that she actually died several years ago and she's just a body double. They just keep, and the same with Biden too, but that's a different thing.
Same with a lot of people, but there's something weird about just London and in
something
general.
Weird about royalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get in those positions because of how they're born, and the whole world is infatuated with them for some fucking reason. Like they've done this amazing job of running everything, and it's like they're just born in the right family. They don't do shit. They go on TV and start podcasts like Harry or whatever the.
But they don't really
couple
run
is.
anything in the UK. Do they even make rules or laws? Don't they have other leaders to do that? They're a pretty modern country. For them to still have that there is kind of strange. It doesn't really belong.
I read the Queen was going to step down like very soon and make King Charles. So who knows? Maybe it's time for her to return to the home planet.
Well,
I know there must be multi-generational butt stuff going on in that family, though.
That sounds like a good time. So, Jen, if you remember Peter and Jackie, when they came over from England,
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was. I can't remember if it was Ben or somebody else, but they asked them, how much pull does the Queen actually have? And they were like, not a lot. Like there's some executive orders that she can do, but pretty much Parliament and the other thing, basically what would be our House and Senate, they take care of pretty much all of it. And she's there as kind of the morale, shall we say.
There's a prime minister too.
She's a figurehead.
Isn't there? And the prime minister is like their president. So
that's who they lean
kind
on
of like
for most everything. Yeah.
Pretend. It's like their medieval pretend leader that they don't really rely on for anything.
Yeah, but do you really think that fucking Boris Johnson is doing a goddamn thing? Like someone's pulling his strings too. Like how deep?
I think all their strings are pulled.
Yeah,
I think all their strings are pulled.
Yeah, for sure.
That guy's 100% on cocaine. Didn't they just find it in his office or something?
Here's the thing. These people do the most atrocious, fucking horrific things on the planet.
Yep.
And then they get ousted from office because they had a party without masks on. It's like, are you fucking kidding? Like, these stories they feed us are just bullshit.
It's probably real shit, but it's like, well, we don't want him going down for drinking baby's blood. So put some fucking cocaine in his goddamn office and say that's why we kicked him out.
Like Zucker from CNN, right? He had to step down because he was dating a colleague that he worked with. Like, so fucking what? That's where everybody meets their fucking wives at, right? At work. And like, he has to step down. No, give me a fucking break. Some other big shit happened. They use that as the cover story.
Even the military doesn't make you stop dating somebody else as long as it's not in the direct chain of command. That's it.
Isn't he the second CNN guy to go down too recently? There was one before that too. Oh, Cuomo. Yeah.
Cuomo, probably, there's some speculation that Cuomo had the goods on him because he ended up getting like a $10 million package to walk, like no questions asked. So, yeah.
Well, and it was supposedly because he was going against COVID regulations to help his brother. That was the cover story, at least.
I think all these people need to have their heads cut off in the public square for being propagandists.
I could
like,
totally go ahead with that.
Propagandists are up there with child molesters, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
I'll pull the cord on the
They're molesting your mind.
You're all, wait, you didn't rape a kid? Oh, okay, you spread lies. I'm off with your head.
Yes, we're gonna start a fund for that and get that rolling. All right.
Sure.
Did Hitler and his secret societies channel multidimensional entities to reverse engineer UFOs in the Hanabu and other spacecraft? What do you think?
Yes. Go, Cory.
And then they went to Antarctica after. But go ahead.
I don't know. I just can't see it.
No, you don't want to see it. That's why you don't want to get deeper into the occult shit, because you don't want to fucking see it.
That's possible. It is possible. I will not deny that. But nothing that I've ever fucking read about Hitler did any kind of passion for the occult make itself obvious. So I don't know. I don't know.
A passion for drugs.
According to Mr. William Ramsey, who I had on the other day, longtime journalist there, he was deeply involved with a lot of occult stuff. So I don't know. I get conflicting reports about this stuff. So who knows? You know?
Well, here's the thing. They've lied about everything else about Hitler. Why not lie about that too? You know?
Yeah. Well, he definitely liked drugs. I know that.
Yeah, he liked the drugs. There's that one video where he's at the Olympics and he's like rocking back and forth. Like, it's great.
Man, good times with Hitler and his drugs for show.
Especially in his bunker in those last 6 weeks, man. He was fucking whoo.
And that's one thing I want to clarify real quick. Like, the whole Hitler went to Argentina shit is nonsense. It's pure fiction.
In the last 6 weeks?
Well, like, you know, they say he escaped to Argentina and they got a fucking History Channel show with like 3 seasons chasing Hitler. It didn't happen. Okay. That's pure fiction. He's dead. They have his jaw and his complex dental work. It's unduplicatable. No question. He did not make it to Argentina.
Yeah, but they're
definitely not lying about that.
They used his clone's jaw. That's what happened. That's what they do. All right. So no Nazi UFOs. All right. What about we kind of touched on flat Earth. What about hollow Earth? Do you think that we got some caverns or massive even inner Earth cities where these beings or even humanoids live? Maybe even Bigfoot that he lives down there and comes out and grabs people and brings them down there and fucks them. Who knows?
I think that's actually where all of those stories, whether it be what's it called, Chupacabra, is that right?
Yeah,
like the Mexican mini Bigfoot, right?
Yeah. And then what's the one in Siberia? I was a Yeti. And then I think honestly, that's another one of those things where I'm like, see, I could see some crazy shit like that. And I think the entrance is Antarctica. I think I don't know if I believe any of that shit, but I could see that being real. And now it's actually in pop culture movies. They just had a whole thing about it in Godzilla versus Kong. They go to the hollow Earth. I'm like, now that's controlled opposition right there, because they know that people are talking about it. They're like, let's feed them some breadcrumbs. Let's make it seem like, it's a possibility. I'm like, fuckers.
Yeah, I love the idea of the Earth having a butthole, and I would like to go in there and see what's in there. But
Do you think it's plausible though? I think hollow Earth is one of the most believable ones because why not? There are tons of caves. Creatures could live down there, and if they live deep enough down there and develop and grow and are able to survive, and then they kind of come up here and they're like, it's too bright for them, but they can feed
Just
off
like the
people
sea.
every now and then bring them back down, but that's their home. They don't want to be up here. I don't know.
Here's the question. Is the spinning of the Earth enough centrifugal force for people on the inside of the Earth to be able to stand like on the gyrotron, right? And like live their normal lives, right? Is that artificial gravity come from the spinning centrifugal force of the Earth? That's the big question.
Spinning. We talked about this on the flat Earth debate we had, and I always bring it up because it's one I still haven't heard a great answer to yet, and it's how all the stars rotated around Polaris. And we showed, I mean, there's tons of time-lapse pictures of this, and it's always the same. They make this vortex around Polaris. That's not fucking possible with the numbers we're given as to how the Earth is spinning and how we're moving through space. We would not be seeing that exact fucking thing every night. So I haven't heard a good rebuttal to that yet. And I would love to get Neil deGrasse Tyson on. Have a feeling he'd say no, though, if I asked. So
I have an interesting theory on the solar system, and this has kind of struck me recently. So you have the solar system, which is comprised of the sun in the middle and all the planets going around it, right? Allegedly in a flat plane, give or take. But the sun is traveling around the outer edge of the galaxy, right? So you end up with this like spinning the sun moving around the outside of the galaxy. And I would think that the drag action alone would cause the planets to fall somewhat behind the motion of the sun. So wouldn't that cause the shape of the solar system to be more like a very wide kind of like ice cream cone shape as opposed to a flat cylindrical disk if the gravitational force of the solar system is concentrated in the sun, and that's what's dragging everything else behind it through the rotation of the galaxy? So yeah, I think a lot of the shit that they teach us about space is just straight fucking made up.
right, that's all I'm getting at. Now you're on my level.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to some cryptid creatures and possibly underground creatures. Bigfoot. Man, the other day I watched the most terrible documentary. I thought I was watching a documentary about Bigfoot. I was into it, man. They had these two guys in a weed grow farm that were killed, that were mutilated, and the witnesses said a Bigfoot did it. And man, I went through like 5 or 6 episodes of this bullshit. And at the end, it turned out it's just 2 drug dealers that killed the guys and blamed fucking Bigfoot. I invested in this shit to see, Bigfoot mauling somebody, but it turns out it's just some fucking drug dealers. So I was very disappointed. What do you guys think about Bigfoot?
Ben? Jen? What do you got?
I don't know. So have you ever read the Hunt for the Skinwalker, the story of the Skinwalker Ranch book? Where they actually document. Oh, all right. So they actually they interview the farmer, the rancher who lived there, and he is a down home, good old boy, like changed his name, like wouldn't even let them use his name in the book because he was like, this shit is so fucking stupid. And I'm going to tell you what I saw, but I don't want anyone to fucking know that I'm saying this. Like he was so embarrassed. But he talked about and he saw crazy shit, but he did talk about seeing Bigfoot come out of a portal or something and then go back in. Like he saw some weird shit. And Bigfoot is mentioned a couple times where they're like, they don't call it Bigfoot though, for sure. He's not like, I saw a Sasquatch. Like he describes Bigfoot very like the typical description and says that was around. And that's the story from is it like Uinta tribe around that area in Utah?
The Uinta, yeah, the Utes.
Yeah, they talk about Bigfoot, but it can change. It's not just Bigfoot. It can be whatever. It's not this like hairy creature wandering the earth. It can be that, but maybe that's its true form. But it can change into different things and be whatever it needs to be.
I still think all that shit, all the cryptids, not necessarily all, but like Bigfoot has such a weird relation to aliens too. From different stories we've heard, there's orbs, or somebody sees Sasquatch get into a UFO. There's really weird fucking correlations to Bigfoot and UFOs, and I just think that they're all kind of the same thing. They're either interdimensional, or they're all different types of aliens, or Or they're the same thing presenting themselves differently to different people. Who fucking knows? I
It
don't
could
think
be
it's
like
an actual hairy creature that's 100% physical and walking through the woods.
What if it's like the dogs of the aliens, though? Like they let their dogs down. They're like, all right,
Go
go
poop,
search
go take a
around.
shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grab whatever you
Go
can. Yeah, take a gigantic dump somewhere and scare the shit out of you. Who cares? We won't clean it up. We don't have a bag.
Hurry
big
back.
enough. And then they bring it back, and then they can like take everything out of its brain that it saw, and that's like their-
sorry, he's still potty training.
It's just a drone. Has anybody found a Sasquatch dump?
No, okay, so
That's another thing. What about bones? Nobody's ever found Sasquatch bones.
No.
No.
Because the
Skeleton.
aliens come back and get them.
Maybe they don't have bones. Maybe they just dissolve when they hit sunlight.
I would like to say, Chris,
Ooh, I
I don't really feel sorry for you that you invested all of that, because you invested it in a documentary that was on a platform that you could actually watch. I don't know. To me, any like
What?
our friend Seth. My point is that if you can watch it on fucking Netflix or somewhere else, I wouldn't have invested that much time in a fucking documentary about goddamn Bigfoot on any platform like that whatsoever. YouTube.
Oh
whatever
man,
you wanna
it
say.
was one of those late night trying to fall asleep things, you know.
Oh,
It was
so you got
it was
through
still
5
wasted time.
episodes?
Yeah,
I still
man.
think the best and only evidence for Bigfoot is the Patterson Gimlin film. That thing's
got sexy titties, boy.
Well, and like the wear under the arms. You think those country hillbillies were smart enough to think of that shit? No, it wasn't a suit. They didn't have any kind of complex costumes like that at the time, and it was. Yeah, there's no chance that thing was
Isn't
fake.
that the one where it looks behind him over his shoulder and then keeps
Yeah.
walking into the
That's
woods?
the OG
Okay.
Bigfoot.
That's the
footage.
OG.
Yeah, that's the original.
Yeah, I think that's really the only good evidence that there is.
And of course, it's grainy as fuck because,
But where the fuck are the bones? I mean, one of them tripped and fell, hit its head in a fucking creek and died. And like, come on, somebody had to have found something.
Idiots.
I don't know if you want to get a Bigfoot bone. That might. Oh man, get that Bigfoot.
They have
bone
big
in you.
dicks from what I hear.
Yeah, Bigfoot porn, man. Is it a market that we haven't cornered yet? I don't know. What do you think, Corey?
I'm taking
There is
that
some.
right now.
There is some.
Dang.
Okay, it's creepy. That weird shit is. I don't want to talk about it.
All right, what we got next? Okay. Let's explore. This is a fun one. We were talking about the secret space program earlier. A lot of conspiracy talk show hosts, they're afraid to dive in the deep waters of the super soldiers. Not me, man. I'll have those crazy motherfuckers on. They've been to Mars. They've been in jump rooms. They have their consciousness ejected from their bodies and put into a clone on Mars, and they fight aliens and mantis beings with rail guns, and it's all true because they said so. I don't know. Some of these guys really believe it, and it's kind of creepy, some of the stuff they say. What do you think about super soldiers?
I actually thought of you today when you were talking about choosing something to talk about. I'm like, oh, the super soldiers thing. I haven't had anybody on yet like that because I haven't gone deep enough
Be
into
bold.
crazy territory, I guess. I know. But it's one of those things where I don't think right off the top, I'm like, you're batshit crazy. And then I got to check myself. And I'm like, who knows? Stranger things have happened. Maybe that is true. But why is the government always choosing these little old ladies to be super soldiers? That's the one thing I never understood. Like, if they're going to have super soldiers, they're going to be some big 6'8" black dude that's like into karate and shit. No, it's always
Michael
some.
J.
Well,
White,
no,
like,
not necessarily. Nobody's going to see a
creepy
little old lady
70-year-old.
coming.
See, there you go.
So what is the super soldier thing? They're saying they're taking their soul out and putting it into a different body on Mars, like
Yeah,
projecting
they
it? I
can
don't know
take
if
their
I've heard that.
consciousness out of their current body and upload it into a
I don't believe that.
cloned body on Mars.
I don't
See?
believe that you can
so
collect
funny.
and transfer consciousness.
Correct. I agree with you 100%.
Oh,
Well, you
okay.
know.
Well, I disagree because I don't think consciousness comes from the brain at all. I think
I
it's
don't either.
definitely somewhere else, and our brains are a receiver. So if there is a way, I definitely think that's possible. I'm not saying they can do it yet, but I think it could be possible.
Well,
Well, if there's
the Matrix.
if there's far ahead in technology as we've always talked about them being, maybe they can. Who fucking knows?
I think it comes from my balls through my dick.
Okay.
Oh wow! And ding ding, Ben for the most intelligent comment of the night. Here's
You're
yours.
welcome, and I'm out.
This show has reached a new high right there.
I don't know. In that theory of super soldiers, I don't know about that one. It's kind of like the whole teleportation thing where they deconstruct you into molecules, send it back, and then it reshapes you on the other side like a string of numbers, which has been a common thing in movies for a very long time. But although I agree with Jen, I don't think that it's manufactured in the brain. I don't think that is consciousness. I call it a soul, call it ether, and obviously all of that can be transmissible. We're doing it all the time, but I don't think that what makes that person's consciousness theirs. I don't think that can be transferred. Whether you want to call it something more spiritual rather than a physical or scientific.
Well, it's like putting it into a husk. So like it's like saying when you die, you'll still be you. You'll just be like nothing, but you'll still have your thoughts and you'll still be your own self. You just won't be in your body anymore.
It's like taking the hard drive out of the computer.
But that's
it's impossible to separate the consciousness from the body because we're really just a compilation of different reactions to chemical reactions. Emotions are nothing more than chemical reactions. Synapse firing in the brain. There's no fucking way. There's no way you're taking this consciousness, putting it somewhere else, and then expecting me to still be me. Not at all.
That's my problem with the transhuman thing. Is I don't think you can upload your consciousness to a silicon chip and expect it to be you. It might act like you and think like you and talk like you, but I don't think it's you. I think you're gone after that. Like you go to wherever place humans go when they die.
Okay, well, Joe, let me ask you this then. This idea of AI in a lot of these movies that have been going on about I can't think of the word. Them learning on their own. Them learning on their own. I can't remember what it's called, but the idea that the AI becomes self-aware. What's that?
Becoming sentient, self-aware, yeah.
Self-aware, yeah. Where they start to think for themselves and develop their own consciousness. That is kind of the same way that I agree with you that I don't think you can put it on a chip and embed it. Is because how do you embed what makes you tick? Yes, you can say all the words and all the phrases and you can string them together and a computer program and its algorithm can splice those together. They've been doing that for a long time now, ever since computers. But I don't think that it can fabricate its own consciousness the same way that I don't think you can transfer yours. I don't know. My mind is totally open to changing on that. That's just currently what I view it as.
Just talk. Yeah.
Well, here's something. So, let's just say I ate too much sugar and it raised my blood pressure, and then I got angry at everything quicker because my blood pressure was raised. My anger in those moments could then be a direct correlation to the too much sugar that I ate. So our consciousness is constantly shifting and affected by outside factors. And you can't ever really quantify those outside factors into a consciousness to be able to transport. So the idea of being able to duplicate the exact environmental and biological circumstances required to maintain that level of consciousness, I think it's not feasible at all. And ultimately, and then you have the Buddhist "we are all one" idea, right? Where if you were to strip away all the individual genetic and environmental factors, the consciousness aspect would be the same in all of us. We would basically share a consciousness, but we're divided by these physical barriers, right?
And it changes only because of the physical, yeah.
Right, and the experience, right? So it's really just a world full of me's running around.
Man,
it is. I 100% believe that. That's why I think that the consciousness could be transferred, only because we're all part of the same thing. So it could easily do that if it wanted to.
And I think that can be shaped into a pretty good pickup line. I'm going to work on that.
I was just going to say, I better fucking not end up in your fucking meat husk next time around. I'd rather be in Jen's. I mean,
whatever.
I'd rather have stuff to play with.
That'd be weird. What if I come back as a girl too?
Well, while we're on the lines of consciousness occupying individual persons, Let's close on this one. The possibility of NPCs, people that just don't have that spark in them, that are here just as part of the program, part of the background, just to be here to run a certain program. What do you think?
Well, yeah, Sarah Palin proved that.
Biden?
So, okay,
No,
so
I meant-
what if we are just part of the same thing and it was wanting to create an experience for itself? So it created all of this polarization. That's all we have in this world. We have north, south, black, white, men, women, hot, cold, whatever, you name it. There's opposites everywhere. And it's better than nothing. I was just talking about this the other day with them. But so if you're in like a void of nothing and you just want experience, you want something, you have to create opposites. So creating the NPCs, I do think NPCs are real anyway, because this whole world is just a construct for us to have experiences, because it blasted itself out and was like, all right, I'm going to create a bunch of different particles. It's all part of me. And then I want to have experiences. But the NPCs kind of keep the game going. So if you figure it out, that's boring, because then you just go back or whatever, or it's not as fun anymore. So if you want to have the whole experience of life, you need the NPCs to keep everything running. So they are kind of there to keep everything on track. Like, nope, you have to wear your mask, or like, no, vaccines are really great, like stuff like that. And then you're like, wait, are they? I don't know. I'm not sure. And then it keeps you guessing, because it's exciting. It's an experience. It's better. Even if you're angry, even if you're like, fuck that person, I hate masks, you're still experiencing an emotion. It's better than not thinking at all.
It's like an RPG that has a never-ending quest generator. It's like, look, it never stops, and you'll always have choices. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's another
It's like
NPC.
a choose your own adventure all the time. And then if you ever are like, wait, I think I should just meditate and just get back to myself. And NPC's like, no, you should eat tons of cookies and milk, Cory.
Oh, yeah, I meant to say that. I disagree with you on that, Cory. I think the only reason why milk should be, I don't really eat cookies, is for my Captain Crunch and Marshmallow Dino Bites.
Oh my God.
I think NPCs prove themselves to be real if you've ever been in traffic ever. They are 100% real. And I think of NPCs as more like farm animals, kind of, where they exist and they do their thing and they survive and they eat and make noises and they poop and do all this stuff. But they're sentient to an extent, but they just kind of like mindlessly do their thing, not really knowing what the fuck they're doing.
Like
and then
Free Guy.
Chickens.
Yeah. And then they die and then nobody cares.
Chickens. Oh, our chickens are so sweet, though. We have 5 chickens, and
They're NPCs.
kind of, but they come over, they want pets from us. They'll come over and they'll all line up and like hunch over because they know we're going to pet their backs. Like, we've trained them to receive pets from us.
NPCs can be easily trained. Look at the mask thing. Come
True.
on.
They do produce eggs for us. We take them, they watch me, and they're like, huh? What are you doing? Okay, bye. And then they just eat worms.
They crank out an egg. And
I think the NPCs are actually there, not as the thinkers or the people that are proclaiming things like you should wear a mask. No, it's to show the support, where all the NPCs are like, yeah, we're going to download you now to wear a mask, and you're going to think it's awesome. Click, boop, bloop. Now it's done. And then they're the ones that are just walking around on the street that are normal. Like, oh yeah, you might get COVID if you don't wear a mask.
and then they get on Twitter. Masks are great. Vaccine.
Right. So I think that the NPCs are in the densely populated areas to give support to the way that they want to change the non-NPCs.
Yeah, it's like bots on Twitter. Yeah.
Right.
Fair enough.
Do the NPCs know that they're NPCs?
100% not.
I wonder.
Definitely not.
Does a cow know it's a cow? No. It just knows it wants to eat
I'm
grass.
convinced my cat's a fucking NPC.
Moo.
It's running our program all the time.
I think cats are way fucking smarter.
I think my cat's possessed. He might be possessed by an NPC.
For sure. All right, guys, that was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Cory, any announcements about anything before we head out?
Nope. Just go get your fake mask at fakemask.shop. You can get them a discount. You get 10% off, and you get a whole big discount if you buy them in bulk. So I think you can get like 10 of them for like $70 or something like that. Best deal around. And also we have Forbidden Knowledge News Con coming up. You're going to want to see my presentation on the Sunday. It's going to be brutal.
Yes, sir.
What day is it?
Sunday.
March 13th.
Yeah, March 13th.
Okay.
Nice.
And yeah, we'll back up your Fake Mask USA ads because we used those masks to get to Colorado to see you guys when we came to Denver.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm
Pretty
talking about.
awesome.
Breathing
Totally
free the whole
works in the
time.
airport. Nobody gave us shit. They told me to pull my fake mask up when I had it pulled down drinking my vodka that they thought was water too on the plane. So fuck you, Southwest.
NPCs.
Yes. We have our own domain. It's fakemask.shop. Make sure you go there to get your fake mask.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
All right, Legit Bat crew, let everyone know where they can find all your wonderful stuff.
Well, we're here on Rokfin with you guys, and you never do this part, but we're on Rokfin with you guys. We did start a YouTube that I don't do much on because it's YouTube and I don't care, but you can find us there too for a couple free videos, and then wherever you get podcasts, Instagram, Facebook, and legitbat.com if you want to get a dumb shirt or a mug or something, whatever.
Yes,
We have a
get that merch.
cool new design
Yeah,
coming
cool
out.
new design coming out, comic book design.
Bags Draws on Instagram.
I have to send it to
Draws
you,
for
Chris.
OBDM.
It's fucking cool.
Yeah, he did a really, really cool design for us. Ben's hair is dark in the picture. He's not happy about that.
He's very
It's
upset.
fine.
All right, guys, thank you so much. That was awesome, and we will be doing it again soon.
guys.
And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. Talk again tomorrow.